A wealthy man suddenly collapses at a remote clinic, only to find himself falling for the one nurse who remains unaware of his identity. The sun blazed relentlessly over the parched expanse of the field that lay just beyond the quaint borders of Willow Creek. A temporary stage had been erected before the skeletal remains of what was destined to become the future Sunrise Elementary. Before it, folding chairs were arranged, occupied by townspeople, teachers, local officials, and a few inquisitive children, while a banner above the stage danced gently in the warm breeze. United, we create the future. Michael Thorne stood at the podium, sleeves rolled up, smile polished, cameras flashed as he spoke into the mic. His voice steady, engaging, well-rehearsed. This institution will transcend mere bricks and mortar, he proclaimed. It will stand as a guiding light, a place where aspirations are nurtured and possibilities take flight. Every child, no matter their place of birth, is entitled to an equal beginning. The audience offered a courteous round of applause. Some appeared truly optimistic. Some cast doubtful looks at one another. Michael inhaled deeply, his hands clutching the sides of the podium. Then a change occurred. A sudden jolt of agony surged through his chest. He hesitated, blinked, and swayed a bit. A bead of sweat trickled down his temple, and it wasn't due to the heat. He made an effort to press on. Yet the word lingered unspoken on his tongue. In an instant he faltered, his gaze drifting, and his legs gave way beneath him. Gasping murmurs swept across the audience as Michael Thorne, among the wealthiest individuals in the nation, fell to the ground on stage. Is there anyone who can lend a hand? Is there a physician available? Chaos ensued. A handful of security personnel hurried onto the stage. Others scrambled for their phones. In an instant, Michael was lifted into a nearby truck and sped away to the town's sole clinic. The Willow Creek Medical Station was modest, resembling more of a repurposed farmhouse than an actual medical facility. Within, the fluorescent lights flickered softly as the door swung wide open. Urgent, a voice cried out. He's having trouble breathing. A young woman in scrubs hurried down the hallway, her hair pulled back neatly, a stethoscope already dangling from her neck. She stood just shy of 5'5", yet her eyes held a fierce determination. Her name badge displayed the title, Dr. Iowa Rivers. What happened? She inquired, moving closer, her gaze fixed on the ashen figure lying on the stretcher. Experiencing chest pain, fell unconscious during the event. His pulse falters, breaths come in uneven waves. Iowa pressed her fingers against his neck, assessed his pupils, then pivoted sharply to the nurse beside her. This is a cardiac emergency. A massive myocardial infarction, potentially involving the left anterior descending artery. Judith, the older nurse, frowned. We must take him to the city. This is beyond our capabilities. Iowa stated firmly, he won't survive the trip. Immediate action is essential. A whisper swept across the room. A local woman named Helen, who worked as a nurse, voiced her thoughts. Dr. Rivers, this situation exceeds our capacity to manage. You've just graduated from medical school. Perhaps we should hold off for the airlift. Iowa declared that time was of the essence. She gestured towards the vitals monitor. Examine his statistics. He's falling apart. We linger, he passes away. The atmosphere in the room was charged with tension. Judith moved in, her voice dropping to a whisper. This procedure has always been performed under supervision. You're not prepared. I am, Iowa responded, composed yet resolute. If I remain inactive, he will perish. If I make an effort, there's a chance he could survive. That's the only reasoning I require. The group paused, uncertainty hanging in the air. One of the aides whispered, we're about to lose the largest benefactor this town has ever known to an inexperienced newcomer. Iowa cast him a glance. I'm not considering his name. At this moment, my thoughts are consumed by his heart, faltering before our eyes. A moment lingered. With a resigned sigh, Judith passed her the tray filled with emergency supplies. Then let us rescue him. They hurried along with purpose. Iowa stepped forward, giving orders with the confidence of someone far more seasoned. In the absence of a cath lab and advanced imaging, She relied entirely on her skill and instinct. She skillfully administered the clot-busting drugs, adjusted the oxygen levels with precision, utilized the portable EKG to validate her instincts, and observed every flicker of the heart monitor as if it were sacred text. Half an hour went by. 45. A solitary, distinct beep settled into a steady rhythm. Iowa exhaled slowly, retreating from the bed as the monitor displayed a consistent reading. Michael's hue started to revive. His breathing became steady. "He's stable," she murmured gently. The atmosphere was still. Judith regarded her, her expression a mystery. She nodded slowly in response. "You have just become his savior." Iowa remained unyielding. She merely cast her eyes over the man sprawled on the table, oblivious to the events that had unfolded, and murmured, "Let's wish he awakens with a kind spirit in every sense." Michael stirred from his slumber, greeted by the subtle aroma of antiseptic and the gentle buzz of fluorescent lights above. For a brief instant, he found himself lost in uncertainty about his surroundings. His body was heavy with fatigue, his chest pulsed with a persistent, dull pressure, and his mouth felt parched, rough like coarse sandpaper. He attempted to rise, yet a surge of vertigo forced him down once more. A soothing voice emerged from his right side. "Take your time. You have just emerged from the grips of a heart attack." He turned his head, deliberately, to catch sight of a young woman beside him, clipboard in hand, her tone steady and impartial. She wore scrubs, her hair secured in a practical ponytail, her expression a blank canvas, neither cold nor warm, just expert. "What transpired?" He spoke in a rough voice. "She replied that you collapsed yesterday at the school site. You have been summoned to this place. We needed to take action without delay. There wasn't a moment to spare for your transfer to the city. And you? Rescued me? I took the lead on the procedure, indeed." Michael's eyes fluttered momentarily. "I sincerely appreciate it." Michael Thorne," she said, her gaze fixed on the chart before her. "We deduced that from your identification." He let out a quiet laugh, grimacing at the pressure in his chest. "Ah, so you are familiar with my identity. Your name is known to me. That's all I require," she stated matter-of-factly. Michael halted, anticipating at the very least a nod of acknowledgement, a spark of wonder, perhaps even a hint of reverence. He was accustomed to being recognized not merely by his name, but by his visage, his Forbes profile, and his charity interviews. However, the woman in front of him appeared completely unconcerned. "I'm sorry," he uttered with a measured tone. "I missed yours." "Iowa Rivers," she responded. "Thank you once more, Dr. Rivers. Your actions have profoundly impacted my existence." She offered a slight nod, yet her gaze remained unyielding. He frowned slightly, simply fulfilling his duties. "Your enthusiasm appears to be lacking." With a raised eyebrow, she finally locked eyes with him. "Would you enjoy a parade?" Michael chuckled in an uncomfortable manner. "No, few individuals communicate with me in this manner. I stand apart from the crowd." He tilted his head, unmistakably. A lengthy silence ensued. Michael examined her expression, attempting to decipher her response. There existed neither fear nor reverence, nor even curiosity. Only a serene, watchful distance remained. He made another attempt. "I arrived with the intention of supporting a school," he said softly. "I aim to follow it to the end. That's the reason I found myself in town." "I understand," Iowa remarked. "Your tone suggests a lack of conviction." She shifted a bit, setting her clipboard on the petite metal table. "We've seen individuals like you arrive here in the past, armed with schemes, funds, and assurances, ready to make a splash, wave a flag, and capture some images for your publicity team. Then you disappear, leaving us with a fragmented structure and unfulfilled aspirations that never reached the surfaces." Michael's lips parted ever so slightly, a look of surprise crossing his face. "I'm not like them," he remarked, a hint of defensiveness creeping into his voice. Iowa offered a faint, weary smile, devoid of mockery, simply reflecting exhaustion. "That's what they all claim," he gulped, uncertain of how to reply. The atmosphere surrounding them thickened. "I understand your kind, Mr. Thorne," she remarked, her tone soft yet not unkind. "Your intentions are good, but this place doesn't require additional headlines. It requires consistent execution." Michael gazed at her, taken aback. He had faced rooms brimming with critics, navigated through boardroom interrogations and press conferences. Yet this moment felt distinct. This held deep significance. And the most peculiar aspect was, she was indeed correct. He reclined against the pillow, his chest constricted, not from the pain at this moment but from an unarticulated weight, a silent burden lingering in the air. Iowa cast a brief look at the monitor, jotted down a quick note on her chart, and then advised, "You should take some time to rest. I'll follow up with you later." As she began to walk away, Michael gently inquired, "Do you consistently interact with your patients in this manner?" She hesitated at the threshold, drawn only to the renowned. Michael received the news that his stay at the clinic would last a minimum of 10 days. His heart remained delicate, and the attending physician, Dr. Iowa Rivers, had firmly stated that he would not be discharged a moment before it was deemed medically appropriate. "Another episode like that," she had remarked, "and you may not find yourself fortunate enough to be close to a determined doctor next time." He offered a smile, attempting to penetrate her facade of professionalism, yet she had already averted her gaze. He remained there, and after many years, he experienced a rare moment of stillness. Silence reigns, interrupted only by the creaking of aged floorboards, the steady hum of fluorescent lights, and the faint whispers of conversations echoing from afar. On the second day, Michael resolved to let go of the title. Silence on Thorne Enterprises, no recollections of his identity or possessions. He was simply Mike, a heart patient on the mend in room 3. The majority of individuals at the clinic failed to identify him. This town stood in stark contrast to Wall Street and the glossy magazine covers. To them, he was merely another individual requiring assistance, and for the first time, he embraced the obscurity. He observed Iowa laboring from afar. She glided through the space with purpose, her demeanor serene yet authoritative. As she knelt beside the elderly man in room 2 to examine his ankle, she lingered a bit longer, engaging him in conversation about the garden his late wife had tended with such love. With the young mother down the hall, she assisted in feeding the baby and kindly offered to look after the toddler while the woman took a shower. Yet with Michael, still simply Mike, she transformed. Polite, formal, yet detached. Nothing trivial, nothing inviting. She cared for his emotions, not his physical being. Initially, he perceived her as distant. He observed the way she lingered just a moment longer at each screen, how her gaze lingered for a fleeting moment before she exited the room. She always had a granola bar tucked away in her pocket for the child who turned down every meal. She felt warmth within her. She exercised caution. And beneath that tenderness, a weightier presence remained. A fatigue that belies her age. A doubt that was not derived from academic sources. It emerged from lived moments. Michael found himself captivated. He inquired of the nurse, Judith, regarding her. Judith remarked that she arrived here immediately after completing her medical studies. She had countless options before her, yet she decided on Willow Creek. This town held tales that remained unheard by all. She expressed her weariness with the clamor. Michael gazed out the window, his eyes drifting past the gravel road and into the expansive fields that stretched beyond. She remains quite reserved in conversation. Judith mentioned that she used to. Then the final school project here unraveled. Commitments were established. Enthusiasm surged among the crowd. And then it came to a halt. No construction. No responses. Only quietude. Michael felt a constriction in his chest. As a teenager, Judith witnessed everything unfold. Iowa embraces hope. She absolutely detests dishonesty. That night, Michael found himself wide awake, his gaze fixed on the ceiling above. He had never considered his presence to be a weight before. He had always felt that his name opened doors to new possibilities. Yet, in this instance, it sparked doubt. Here lingered a specter of bygone promises. He observed Iowa once more the following day. She carefully mended the boy's knee, her soft humming weaving a gentle melody in the air. She engaged in a spirited discussion with the pharmacist regarding the need to reduce the price of insulin for an elderly patient. She chuckled, genuinely chuckled, when a 5-year-old referred to her as Dr. Robot. Yet with him she remained cautious. He discovered a growing curiosity within himself. It's not about her qualifications, but her motivations. What could have caused someone so young to appear so weary? What had instilled such courage in her, while simultaneously leaving her in solitude? He started posing soft inquiries during her check-ins. Do you often hum while you sew? What inspired your name? Have you always aspired to become a doctor? At times, her responses were succinct. At times, she would feign ignorance to the sounds around her. Yet, Michael perceived the subtle change. Each day, her shoulders seemed to ease just a bit more. Her gaze lingered on him more than it used to. He found himself uncertain about her feelings toward him. Yet, he was undeniably captivated by her allure. In that moment, he began to understand that neither wealth nor reputation could ever evoke a feeling quite like this. As if he were unearthing a truth that resonated, even amidst the quiet. Michael discovered her one evening behind the clinic, perched on the low stone wall that framed the back garden. The sun dipped beneath the horizon, painting the sky with hues of gold and lavender. Iowa stood with her arms crossed, her face a mask of inscrutability. He moved forward with caution, his heart calm yet filled with uncertainty. Would you welcome some company? She hesitated before responding. With a slight shrug, she remarked, it's a free country. He positioned himself next to her, mindful to maintain a distance between them. They lingered in quietude for a spell, attuned to the crickets as they commenced their evening symphony. You're an enigma, Dr. Rivers, he murmured gently. She cast a fleeting look in his direction. That's by design. Michael offered a faint smile. You value each person here as if they are important. You linger into the evening. Your dedication is evident. It feels as though you have already made up your mind about my identity. I have, she responded without a moment's pause. His brow furrowed. What is the reason? Her jaw tightened, then eased. I've encountered this previously. You're not the first to arrive here with a grin, a film crew, and a vow. He mentioned that there was no camera crew. She glanced at him, her gaze piercing. Yet, there was a vow, wasn't there? Michael took a deep breath. I refrain from making commitments that I cannot fulfill. Good, she said, her voice suddenly constricted. For the previous individual who attempted this, the aftermath was more than mere shattered ambitions. He gazed at her, anticipation hanging in the air. She remained silent for a considerable stretch of time. She leaned in a bit, resting her elbows on her knees. At the age of 13, she started. The ceremony took place exactly at the spot where you fell. Identical domain, consistent arrangement, the same ribbon poised for the ceremonial snip. A wealthy individual took to the stage and proclaimed his intention to construct the finest school our county had ever witnessed. I can still picture the pride on my mom's face. I recall being in the front row, adorned in my finest dress, clutching a silly balloon. We received hats adorned with the project's logo. Michael's smile disappeared. They excavated the foundation, she went on. And then silence. The trucks vanished from sight. The employees departed. That entire summer stretched out before us in anticipation. The upcoming autumn, the forthcoming winter. The area became overrun with weeds. Children continued to trek 2 miles to the dilapidated schoolhouse we once attended. Each day as I walked by that place, I couldn't help but ponder what had gone awry. She gazed at him then, her eyes shadowed, far away. After 3 long years, she whispered, and nothing ever arrived. Only echoes of commitments that faded into quietude. Michael felt a constriction in his throat. Iowa. That's why I have my doubts about you, she murmured softly. It's not only you. Each and every one of you. Those of you who believe that good intentions alone suffice. Who believes that merely appearing, delivering a speech, and greeting a few people constitutes true charity. Yet we remain here, lingering in the shadows of your absence. We are the ones tasked with clarifying to the children why the gleaming banners held no significance. Michael's gaze fell to the ground, a sense of shame settling in his chest like a smoldering ember. He had never perceived this perspective so vividly, never listened to the narrative recounted from the opposite side of the microphone. He expressed, "I never intended to be that way." "Perhaps not," Iowa responded. "However, having good intentions does not equate to taking the correct actions." Once more, they found themselves enveloped in silence. He finally inquired, "What made you choose to remain here after all that has happened?" She inhaled deeply, allowing the cool evening air to envelop her senses. "Because I couldn't abandon the place that revealed to me what was flawed. I considered that if I became the type of doctor who remained, perhaps I could embody the kind of adult I longed for in my past." Michael turned to face her completely, a mix of admiration and guilt swirling within him. He mentioned that he has accomplished a great deal in his life. Some of them are delightful, while others are quite boisterous. However, I believe this could be the first instance where someone has truly made me feel insignificant in a meaningful way. She gazed at him once more, her eyes reflecting a hint of warmth this time. "Perhaps you're not as terrible as I initially thought," she remarked. Michael offered a subtle smile. For the first time, Iowa faced the truth head-on. The morning Michael Thorne received his official discharge from the Willow Creek Clinic, the nurses anticipated he would depart from town later that same afternoon. Ultimately, that was the way individuals of his kind operated, making a grand entrance, then slipping away discreetly once the oratory concluded and the equipment was stowed. Yet he chose to stay. Instead, he sought a meeting with the town's building supervisor, several local parents, and a group of teachers who had long since lost faith in the prospect of a new school. When questioned about his continued presence, he replied, "I must conduct a comprehensive geological reassessment of the area before we move forward with construction." Certain elements seemed inconsistent. The majority accepted it without hesitation. Some merely shrugged. Some continued to doubt. Iowa, upon hearing the news, arched an eyebrow yet remained silent. However, Michael was telling the truth. Not quite. He intended to examine the architectural designs. Yet, underneath it all, a more profound change had taken place. Something had been stirred in Iowa, unbeknownst to anyone. He had lost all interest in establishing an institution for media or public relations. He aimed to construct it properly. For them. For her. Every morning, he stepped out of the modest room he had rented above the hardware store and wandered along the town's dirt roads. He engaged with families, posed inquiries, and recorded observations. He sat with educators in worn classrooms where ceiling tiles drooped and textbooks were relics from the early 2000s. He engaged in soccer with groups of children, their bare feet dancing on the grass, while he tuned in to their desires for a school that extended beyond mere chalkboards and desks. They sought vibrancy, melody, and a space free from the company of termites. He paid attention. He remained silent, not interrupting or defending himself as an older man muttered, "You're just another city boy playing savior." He remained unfazed when a mother remarked that they always promise ramps for our wheelchairs but never follow through with construction. He meticulously transcribed everything. All things. It was purely by chance that Iowa encountered him once more. Having just completed her evening rounds, she was making her way through the back of the library when she noticed him perched cross-legged on the porch of the community center, encircled by 3 children, all chattering simultaneously and brandishing sheets of paper. He was creating something on a large notepad, rough illustrations of a playground annotated with the children's concepts, a slide with a dragon tail, a treehouse reading nook, swings that don't squeak. She remained in the shadows for a heartbeat longer than was wise. The following day, Michael visited the clinic, not seeking treatment, but rather to pose a question. He expressed a need for an individual with medical expertise to assist in the design of the school's first aid room. "Do you think you might have a few hours to share?" Iowa regarded him with a watchful eye, as was her custom. "Are you seriously going through with this?" He gave a slight nod. Not for the spotlight, just for them. Her eyes combed through his, seeking the familiar spark of arrogance. Yet it was absent. She consented. In the days that followed, she discovered that she was drawn into an increasing number of meetings. What started as a consultation regarding the medical room evolved into conversations about lunch programs, mental health support, and strategies to create a safe environment for children facing trauma. Michael considered her suggestion with great seriousness. He showed respect. He was honest about his understanding. He paid attention. For Iowa, who had dedicated so much time to advocating for these children, that simple act of listening started to transform something within her. One afternoon, as they strolled through the site where the school's foundations would soon take shape, this time equipped with permits, confirmed soil tests, and a trusted local contractor, Iowa came to a halt. "You could have simply written the check and vanished," she remarked. "Many individuals in your situation would likely have done the same." Michael grinned, flicking away the dust from his jeans. "I'm not like everyone else." She narrowed her eyes slightly. "Once you were," he chuckled, his voice warm and sincere. "Indeed, I believe I have." They lingered in quietude for a moment, the breeze whispering through the surrounding trees. The sun stretched its rays, creating elongated shadows across the lot, and in those still moments, neither of them averted their gaze. "What makes this town special?" she inquired gently. "What's the reason to remain?" He paused momentarily before responding. "Someone mentioned that good intentions alone aren't sufficient, that individuals like me can do more harm than good when we arrive with only a partial plan. I want to be the one who demonstrates otherwise." Iowa's expression remained guarded, yet there was a gentle warmth in her eyes. "Perhaps," she remarked, "you might already be." That evening, upon her return to the clinic, Judith arched an eyebrow. "So, you've spent time with the billionaire once more? He doesn't seem to embody the traits of a billionaire," Iowa murmured, almost to herself. Judith wore a sly grin. "Just keep me posted if he begins constructing the moon." But Iowa has remained silent. Instead, she delved into her coat pocket and retrieved the folded blueprint Michael had entrusted to her for review, sketched in pencil, marked by fingerprints, and adorned with the enthusiastic scribbles of 10-year-olds. It may not have been flawless, yet after so long it finally appeared genuine. The rain began gently, a subtle murmur against the rooftops, a delicate tapping that hardly caught the eye. Yet, in just a few hours, the sky transformed into a slate gray, and the winds surged as if they possessed a life of their own. As dusk settled, Willow Creek found itself engulfed in a tempest more ferocious than any the town had experienced in ages. The river surged beyond its banks, followed by the roads succumbing to the deluge and the chaos that ensued. Lightning illuminated the sky with a fierce intensity, while thunder reverberated through the air, causing windows to tremble in their frames. The clinic experienced a power outage shortly after midnight. By 2, the roof started to leak. By 3, half of it had completely ripped away. Iowa was soaked, darting from room to room with a flashlight clenched between her teeth, attempting to relocate patients to the lower levels while pressing gauze against a bleeding forehead, yelling over the howling wind for someone to secure the IVs. As the back door swung open with a loud bang, she whirled around, bracing herself for an onslaught of wind and disorder. It was, in fact, Michael. He was drenched, his garments clinging to him, mud marking his jeans, one arm holding a trembling child, while the other pulled a bag of medical supplies along the ground. "You're not meant to be here," she exclaimed. "I discovered 2 children in a submerged home nearby," he shouted in response. "Their mother remains stranded on the roof. I informed the rescue team of the location. Michael, your heart continues to pulse with life." She gazed at him, eyes wide with intensity, drenched and panting, sensing another change in the air. Not admiration, not fear, but rather a sense of disbelief. "Bring them in," she commanded. He complied in silence. The night revealed itself as a fierce arena. They navigated the murky depths, maneuvering sandbags into place at doorways, fashioning a splint for a fractured leg from bits of timber, and removing rubble from the entrance to ensure access for emergency responders. Michael continued on without pause. Not when the wind sent him reeling, not when his palms burned with blisters, not even when Iowa found him clutching his chest for just a heartbeat too long. "You need to take a seat," she instructed him. Eventually, he responded. As dawn broke, the tempest had moved on, leaving the town in disarray. Fractured roads, toppled trees, shattered windows, and lives irrevocably altered. Michael was consumed by a raging fever. Iowa discovered him slumped on a cot close to the clinic's supply room, shivering beneath a drenched blanket, his skin clammy and pallid. She knelt beside him, gently sweeping the damp hair away from his forehead. You foolish, foolish man. His eyes slowly opened, revealing the world around him. Did we manage to save them, then? Indeed, she murmured softly. Yet it is you who now requires my rescue. He attempted a smile, yet the strain triggered a bout of coughing. Judith and 2 nurses received a call from Iowa. They sprang into action, establishing in 4, wrapping him in warm blankets and monitoring his vitals. He had strained his already delicate heart beyond its limits. Dehydration, exposure, exhaustion. His body was in a state of turmoil. That evening, the clinic radiated softly beneath the flickering emergency lights. Individuals rested on cots and the floor. Nurses slumbered in intervals. Yet, Iowa remained steadfastly by Michael's side. She settled into a metal chair positioned beside his bed, a damp cloth held in one hand while the other gently rested on his arm. She observed each flicker of his eyelids, every subtle rise and fall of his chest. You fool, she whispered softly, a hint of warmth in her voice. Your life was hanging by a thread. Once more, Michael remained silent. He slumbered deeply, yet it was clear he was still in the midst of a battle. Time slipped away. The wind had calmed outside. The rain had ceased. Within the quiet space they occupied, an abundance of unsaid thoughts lingered in the air. As dawn approached, Michael's fever finally subsided. He gradually opened his eyes, discovering Iowa gazing at him, her hair tousled, her eyes shadowed by fatigue. You remained, he rasped. Do you really believe I would walk away after all that you've just done? He offered a faint smile. It would have been warranted. She shook her head, her voice betraying the raw emotion she could no longer contain. Michael, she murmured softly. There was no need for all of that. You had the option to leave. No one would have held it against you. I couldn't leave, he replied. Not while this place still required effort. You nearly shattered yourself in the effort. Perhaps, he remarked, his gaze fixed on hers. But perhaps that's the essence of becoming the kind of man you could truly trust. Iowa reclined, her heart pounding in her chest. She remained silent for an extended period. At last, she took his hand, and this time, she held on tightly. As Michael stirred from his slumber, a serene stillness enveloped the room. The tempest had passed. The clinic was back online. Outside the windows, the soft glow of early morning light seeped through the curtains. Yet within, the atmosphere remained thick with unspoken words. Iowa perched next to his bed, arms folded defiantly. Her hair was pulled back, yet a few strands had slipped free, softly framing her weary face. She observed his eyes fluttering open, prompting her to sit up a bit more upright. You've returned, she murmured gently. Michael offered a subtle smile. I suppose I'm getting used to waking up to you. She rolled her eyes, though there was no genuine irritation in her expression. He gazed at her for an extended moment, then spoke, his voice deep and gravelly. You're the first person I've encountered in quite a while who didn't regard me with admiration. Her brow knitted in concentration. Is that satisfactory? As truthful, he responded. You didn't praise me. You were fine without me. Your gaze met mine, and you spoke the truth even when it was the last thing I wished to hear. Iowa remained unresponsive. Michael inhaled deeply, his voice becoming more resolute. You are the first person who inspired me to act with integrity, not for recognition or legacy, but simply to do what is right. A stillness enveloped them, thick with significance. She cast her eyes downward. You really startled me that night, you know. I understand, he replied. I frightened myself as well. Iowa glanced upward once more, and the softness mingled with caution in her gaze caused him to hesitate. I want to have faith in others, she expressed. But it's challenging when you face disappointment repeatedly, not only from unfamiliar faces but also from those who were meant to remain and show concern. Michael gave a slight nod. I'm not asking for your belief just yet. I'm simply hoping for the opportunity to continue proving myself. She remained silent for an extended period. She leaned in, tenderly smoothing the blanket across his shoulder. Rest, she whispered softly. Energy is essential. For what purpose? He inquired, a faint smile gracing his lips. For a ceremonial unveiling. 2 weeks later, the town convened once more on the same field, yet this time it held a different atmosphere. There was no extravagant stage, no media presence, no ostentatious attire. Just individuals, families, and children dressed in neatly pressed clothes, parents clasping hands, and teachers dabbing away tears before the ceremony commenced. The school now stood with pride, fully realized, devoid of half walls and rusted beams. Classrooms filled with desks, chalkboards, cozy reading nooks, and a vibrant playground adorned with bright swings. A humble library brimming with books, many generously donated by those inspired by Michael's story, eager to contribute to something genuine. Michael lingered at the periphery, clad in a straightforward button-down shirt and jeans, devoid of any entourage or grand introduction. The townsfolk were aware, yet they also understood that he had remained. They had observed him perspire, carry bricks, participate in planning meetings, and go door to door with surveys. He had transformed beyond the figure depicted in the magazine. He was Mike, the one who made an appearance. The mayor delivered a brief address. The principal expressed gratitude to the builders, the donors, and the community. And then the moment Iowa had quietly feared arrived. She was requested to cut the ribbon. With a moment of uncertainty, she moved ahead, the scissors quivering gently in her grasp. Before making the cut, she glanced back at the crowd behind her. Michael lingered, his hands tucked into his pockets, observing in silence. She locked eyes with him, and in that moment, the burden of everything, years of letdowns, of longing, of shattered dreams, overwhelmed her. Yet, on this occasion, it was not suffering. It has been released. She glanced at the ribbon once more before making a decisive snip, the blade gliding through with precision. The audience burst into enthusiastic applause. The children dashed ahead. Doors swung wide. Educators guided students into their new environment, marking the beginning of their journey in a school designed specifically for them. Iowa recoiled, eyes fluttering rapidly. Emotions surged within her, causing tears to cascade down her cheeks. She attempted to brush them aside swiftly, yet they fell too rapidly. And then he appeared. Michael remained silent. There was no necessity for him to do so. He lingered beside her, near yet maintaining a respectful distance, and offered her a neatly folded handkerchief. She accepted it, smiled despite her tears, and softly said, "You did it." He gave a subtle shake of his head. "Actually, we did." They lingered together, watching as the schoolyard came alive with joyous laughter. For the first time in years, Iowa allowed herself to entertain the thought that perhaps not everything constructed from hope was destined to crumble. Certain matters could endure. 1 year later, Willow Creek had transformed from the neglected town Michael had initially encountered. Sunrise Elementary rose majestically, its red brick facade shimmering in the sunlight, the sound of laughter resonating through its corridors. The playground buzzed with energy, while the library hummed with whispers. It had transcended its mere physical form. A vow fulfilled. Iowa Rivers, now officially Dr. Rivers, had taken the helm of the newly renovated Willow Creek Medical Center, constructed just across from the school, with financial support discreetly supplied by Michael. She guided a group of enthusiastic, dedicated healthcare professionals and organized complimentary clinics bi-weekly. The children referred to her as Doc EO. Senior patients presented her with jars of their cherished homemade jam and shared delightful tales of their grandchildren. Michael remained steadfastly present. He divested portions of his business, maintained a lean team managing operations remotely, and settled into a quaint residence on the outskirts of town. Every Wednesday afternoon, he imparted essential business knowledge at the school, and played a key role in organizing community initiatives. Yet, more often than not, he was just Mr. Mike, the guy who delivered stories, baked treats with the children, and repaired the creaky swing that kept falling apart. United, Iowa and Michael emerged as the unwavering core of Willow Creek. Their love was understated. It unfolded gradually, deeply anchored, resilient. One late afternoon in early spring, following a lengthy day of caring for patients and going over lesson plans, Michael invited Iowa to stroll with him through the garden behind the school. The trees were starting to blossom, filling the air with the sweet scent of renewal. They lingered beneath the almond tree, a place where, years ago, they had sought refuge from an unexpected summer storm. Iowa reached up and brushed her fingers against one of the petals, lost in thought. Michael faced her. He reached into his coat pocket and said, "I came here thinking I'd build a school, yet you showed me the way to create a sanctuary." He knelt down, holding a modest silver ring in his hand. "Will you be my partner for life, Iowa?" She gazed at him, breath held tight in her chest, her eyes brimming with tears. Without uttering a single word, she sank to her knees as well, enveloped him in her embrace, and whispered a quivering yes. 1 month later, the wedding unfolded in the charming courtyard of Sunrise Elementary. The children took on the roles of flower bearers and ring carriers. The community adorned the area with vibrant wildflowers and intricately crafted banners. Absent were the photographers, the designer gowns, and the celebrity guests. Instead, there was pure joy, laughter, and a love nurtured by all. Iowa donned a modest white dress, with her hair softly cascading in curls around her shoulders. Michael lingered beneath a canopy of sunflowers and intertwined branches, anticipation hanging in the air. As she made her way down the aisle, the sound of applause reverberated against the school's freshly built walls, leaving no eye untouched by emotion. Under the vast expanse of the night sky, they swayed to the melodies of a vintage record player. There seems to be an abundance of pies that have been baked. The mayor delivered a speech that had the crowd in stitches, and as the evening drew to a close, Michael and Iowa strolled home barefoot, her heels clutched in one hand, his jacket casually wrapped around her shoulders. After 3 years, they joyfully welcomed their daughter, Lila. She possessed the serene resilience of Iowa and the inquisitive gaze of Michael. She cherished the moments spent on her dad's lap during story time and enjoyed planting flowers with her mom in the garden behind the clinic. Each morning, she dashed to the school fence to greet the older kids with a wave, and every night, she demanded a bedtime story about how her parents created a school and discovered one another. Michael crafted part-time now, focusing on a book about sustainable philanthropy, grounded not in theories but in his own experiences. Yet, the majority of his days were devoted to assisting Iowa, nurturing Lila, and caring for the garden where they had initially discovered the joy of cultivating something genuine. At the entrance of Sunrise Elementary, right next to the flagpole, a sizable wooden frame displayed a photograph captured during the inaugural spring festival. Michael, Iowa, and little Lila stood together in front of the school, their hands intertwined, as the sun enveloped them in a warm, golden glow. Underneath the photograph, inscribed with precision on a wooden plaque, lay the words Michael had chiseled on the evening of their nuptials. A family is not constructed from bricks but from the enduring hearts that remain, and in that serene corner of the world, they accomplished just that. In a town overlooked by countless souls, 2 hearts navigated their journey, weathering storms, enduring struggles, and ultimately embracing the serene beauty of their decision to remain. Michael embarked on a quest for meaning, and Iowa illuminated the essence of what is truly important. Being there, not just talking about it. Affection, not remembrance. If this narrative resonated with you, if it evoked the significance of presence and the creation of something genuine, then we welcome you to join a community that shares those values. Join soul-stirring stories for more authentic and moving narratives that honor love, strength, and the little moments that transform lives. Sometimes, the narratives that mend our souls begin with a heart that stands its ground. Thank you for tuning in, and keep in mind that the world is brimming with kind souls and even more remarkable tales.